It was the summer before my senior year in high school, and I could not imagine life being any better. I went to a student council camp that summer at the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point, where I met a young woman from Bloomer, Wisconsin named Lisa. And Lisa was a sweetheart, and I liked her, but I was a very shy, quiet boy. My poverty was low self-esteem, low self-confidence. I had a real hard time just making conversation with other people. During the course of the week, I finally summoned enough courage to invite Lisa to meet me for breakfast on Thursday morning, along with some other. I needed a buffer. And as we went through the line for breakfast on Thursday morning, I felt this need to put on this cool, collected facade. I had it all together. I had it down. So I'm going through the breakfast line, making small talk with the people serving and grabbing dishes and putting them on my tray as though I had done this every day my entire life. I had it all figured out. And I grabbed a glass for the orange juice and I shoved it under the machine without even looking, because I didn't have to look. I was cool. And I put it down, and as soon as I did, sticky, wet orange juice began spraying all over my hand, my arm, my tray, my clothes, everywhere. I was holding the glass upside down. And just like that, in an instant, suave, sophisticated Steve was crushed under the reality of stumbling, bumbling Steve. And what I discovered and what I learned that morning in the ensuing conversation over breakfast with Lisa and some other friends that we had met that week was that broken, faulty, stumbling, bumbling Steve was actually more likable than fake Steve. And isn't that the truth we grow into over a lifetime? That the reality of who we are with all of our faults and failings, our poverty, our brokenness, that authentic self is so much easier to love than the images and the facades that we put forth. It's a very popular motif that Jesus uses throughout the Gospels. We hear it in the story of the Good Samaritan. He contrasts the upright, proper priest with the outcast, filthy Samaritan. In the story of the prodigal son, he contrasts the older son who never did anything wrong, was the apple of his father's eye, everything everyone would ever want to or hope to be, with the broken, failing son who squandered half the family fortune on fast living. And in this gospel this morning, we get the contrast between the high and mighty righteous Pharisee and the lowly, socially outcast, sinful tax collector. And every time we hear one of these stories, and we hear them again and again, every time we hear them, we do a gut check. Who am I more like? Am I like that projected image of perfection? Or am I more like the broken, impoverished? Who am I more like? But if we're really honest with ourselves, we'll acknowledge that we have both these personas within each of us. We hear both the voices all the time, and really, this is an inner spiritual conflict that we're constantly working through. Because let's be let's be very honest with ourselves. There's a part of us that likes the idea of being a little high and mighty. There's that character within us who wants to raise ourselves up, who might at times see ourselves as a little morally superior. We're cool, we got it figured out, and we don't mind telling it like it is to the rest of the world. You know what? If you all out there just lived a little more like me, thought a little bit more like me, acted a little bit more like me, this world would be a better place. We can feel pretty self-satisfied with that voice. Sometimes we'll go so far, as the Pharisee did, to raise ourselves up by pointing out the failings in other people. But there's that other voice within us, that other persona, that knows the truth, that knows we are each just stumbling, fumbling, bumbling people just like everyone else. Doing the best we can, going along, falling down, picking ourselves up, brushing ourselves off, doing it all over again. No better than anyone. Saying the wrong things, thinking the wrong things, sometimes doing the wrong things. We're broken, we're impoverished, and we keep feeling this need to put on this mask, this facade that hides our brokenness, our poverty from other people. And Jesus says, just stop that. Just stop it. Don't try to be perfect, please. Don't pretend you're something you're not, please. Don't you see that God created you in God's own image and loves you just the way you are? Bring that genuine self to me, to the world. Let people see who you authentically are. With your hurts, your pains, your brokenness, your poverty, let the world see that, because it's so much easier to love. That's such a difficult challenge in our culture and our world, isn't it? A very difficult challenge that can either go for or against the gospel, because we do like to raise ourselves up. And we can look out and we can identify any number of the high and mighty who held themselves up and stumbled and fell very publicly. A number of big league televangelists who would pack tens of thousands of people into their churches. Some of our own Catholic priests and bishops and deacons who hold themselves up publicly and fall miserably, and when they do, we look and we shake our heads and we say, it was all just an act. It was all just a facade. You were faking it. In reality, you're no better than the rest of us. And at the same time, we can point to how many humble servants in the world who volunteer in the nursing homes, teachers who break themselves open and pour themselves out for their students, those who are working in the shelters, on the streets, reaching out to neighbors in need, many of whom may never step foot in a church. And yet we look at them and say, wow, you are pouring your life out, sharing yourself authentically as you are to those in need, bringing love where love is needed. We have both of these personas within us, the Pharisee and the tax collector, the priest and the Samaritan. We have both of them within us. The question we wrestle with: who do we let the world see? The image or the reality? Who do we let the world love?